Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the special program about 9/11, the aftermath years. Before we continue our discussion, I do want to take this opportunity to listen to an extract from the book written by Max Malik, who is our guest today. And this extract is read by Zia Muhyiddin, who is a very famous writer and actor as well. We'd like to take this opportunity to do that now.
Haunts our dreams. Sweet garden of light and reason, philosophy, what justice became you? Oh, bitter wine goblet of Ferdinand and Isabella filled your belly with fire. You drank sulphur, suffering after the nightingale left your boughs. Souls of cities, no more quenched by fragrant juice of learning. No longer oranges cooled in the fountains of Seville. The pomegranates of the Sierras still stain your skin. Why quiet, oh great mosque of Cordoba? Deafening silent screams sing rape of marble and jasper. Madinat al-Zahra, spreading cedars and sweet myrtle fed huge by your blood. Satiated rose and rosemary veil face under silver-leafed olive groves. Why now inarticulate in Al-Andalus, the song of Ibn Arabi? Left now the versatile Arabian, how pale your reflection of Al-Buraq. The Giralda, in the minaret they imprisoned the slit-throated Bilal, the muezzin silenced for all eternity.
Powerful words there, Max Malik. Tell us more about that.
Well, the poem is called The Shame of Al-Andalus because it's actually recited by a powerful jihadi leader in the book as a call to terrorism, violence, and grabbing back what he thinks was the golden age of Islam by violence and by physical means. But actually, the true meaning of the poem, and if you read it in the book or hear it, is actually a clarion call for civilization, for tolerance, for pluralism, for justice. And that justice and fairness and equality within society is what are the true hallmarks of a great civilization. And so when it talks about bitter wine goblet to Ferdinand and Isabella, that's the king and queen, Ferdinand and Isabella, when they reconquered Granada and Andalusia and, you know, instigated their Inquisition and the terrors that followed. And, you know, the Inquisition really was about making sure that everybody was a Christian. You know, that's what the Inquisition was there for.
Tell us a little bit about the Inquisition. I mean, some people might be aware, some people might not be so aware. Just very briefly, what happened in this Inquisition?
Well, people were gathered, rounded up, made sure that they were Christians of the right type, not just Christians, but Christians that followed this particular brand of Christianity. Nobody was allowed to be a Jew or a Muslim, or, you know, you had to eat pork once a week. You had to have pork hanging. That's why.
That was to prove that you were with them, as it were.
Absolutely, that you were a Christian. You know, I mean, that's why, you know, you wonder why when you go to holiday in Spain, pork is one of the most common, or sausages or whatever, is one of the most common foods available. And historically, it comes from the fact that if you were living in reconquered Spain at that time as a Muslim, to prove that you weren't a secret Muslim or a Jew or something else, you had to eat pork. That's just one small example. You know, it's only a small thing, but it's really very important as to the cultural and religious domination of Christian thought at that time. Of course, we don't equate the whole of Christianity with the Inquisition, just as we don't equate a terror attack with the whole of Islam. You know, that's the very point. that we're making here, that one horrible act in history, like 9/11, or like the Inquisition that actually went on for many years to eradicate Islam from the Iberian Peninsula, does not make the whole of Christianity guilty for that. Equally, 9/11 does not make the whole of Islam guilty for a terror attack. So culturally and civilizationally, we have had a common heritage. And that goes back to the point that the same civilization of the Renaissance in Europe and thought and ideas and philosophy that developed from there, which has built the modern world that we live in today, really fundamentally comes from the same source.
We need to emphasize on the positive things and things that we share, perhaps. I do want to take a caller at this stage. Caller, assalamu alaikum. Your name and your question or comment, please.
My name's Umar, and I just wanted to say the doctor's made a number of very good key and important points, especially the one regarding taking this middle route, the thinking man's path. I think it's like one that will receive very little publicity, but it's definitely one that millions of people support. And in relation to, I think one of the viewers rang in to say that the doctor was an anti-Islamic writer, I definitely think that people should actually go out, buy this book, comprehend its message by reading it, and then make or have views on it. Because I think it's pointless reading what it says on the internet and then making massive assumptions on the book, because the doctor does raise some very good points. So I think provided it does raise the issues that the community is facing at the moment, I wish the doctor the best of luck with his book.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for those comments. Important endorsement of the view that you made earlier, which was we need to adopt a more middle way, really, which is the pragmatic way. And you cite historical precedents for that as well, that this is not the way it has to be, it's not the way it's always been, and there is a different way of dealing with that. We have another caller. We'll take this call as well, and question is, assalamu alaikum, your name and your comment or question, please.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, welcome.
Brother, I'd like to ask Dr. Malik. One, I'd like to make a comment on his book, actually.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, please go ahead.
My name is Fan, I'm speaking from Peterborough. I'd like to ask Dr. Malik a question about his book. He says that his book is not anti-Islamic. So can you please explain how it benefits Muslims or Islam? Two, we Pakistanis, his comment on Pakistanis being lowest to the low and being Muslims at the moment, I totally disagree with that. We Pakistanis are not lowest to the low. We are proud, and we're proud of being Muslims, and we're proud of being Pakistanis. So please take that comment back.
Okay, we'll take those two comments in that order then, really.
Okay.
So the first comment we'll take now. Go on.
Well, I'm not anti-Muslim in any way. I'm a Muslim, clearly. I come from that heritage. I'm a proud, Pakistani heritage, and I'm Muslim, and I'm very proud of both facts. When I said lowest of the low, I didn't mean that we are the lowest of the low. What I said was we are perceived as, if you happen to be a Muslim and you happen to be a Pakistani, seen by the world, and especially the Western world, as being lowest of the low, because you're seen as what? A terrorist potentially, a bomber potentially, you're profiled at airports, you're seen with eyes of paranoia, hatred, looked down upon, as if you're not going to bring anything positive. I'm not saying we are. I don't believe we are. I'm the same. I'm a Pakistani second generation Muslim guy, born and brought up, and born in Pakistan, brought up here, proud of my heritage. The reason I'm saying these things is because I feel for the people and the problems of Pakistan and the suffering of Muslims across the world. So that's what I would say about that. But we have to be realistic, we have to be honest. We are profiled, we are treated like that. And if you were to go and ask, world security agencies, who is the biggest threat that, as you perceive it to be, it is going to be a Pakistani Muslim guy. That's the fact of the matter. So that's what I'm saying when I'm saying low. I'm not saying that's my opinion. I obviously don't think so, because I would be putting myself in that category. Secondly, whether this book is a novel, it's not meant to benefit any one community over another community. It's meant to show a story, and through the background of that story, the state of affairs in the world as it is today. That's the backdrop. I'm not here to favor Pakistan or India or Muslims or non-Muslims. I have no problem. I mean, I believe, as you were saying, hinting earlier, sorry, I just finished the point, that we have more commonality. That's my whole point about there being no clash of civilizations, or certainly there should not be. We have more in common as human beings. We have a commonality in our humanity, which is the true message, of all great religions of the world.
To be fair to the caller, actually,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fictional portrayal of a very serious subject, and you are discussing very serious subjects which are of fundamental importance to Muslims, to the world, really, in that sense.
Yeah.
I mean, what is your, extending on the question from the caller, I mean, I think what people might be interested in knowing is, what is your overall message then, really, concluding message, if you like, from the book?
Well, the book is a story, as I say, it's a novel. But if there is a message, it's that violent extremism isn't the answer, in that it doesn't succeed. But also, it's very easy to see Islam or Muslims, and this is the second point of the caller, I'm addressing that, as a monolithic, boring, uniform, brown, cultural entity that exists on the Af-Pak border. But the whole point of my book is that Islam or Muslims are not like that. The name of the main character is Jimmy. He's got green eyes. There are other Muslims who are white or black or any other color. Muslims are
breaking stereotypes.
Breaking stereotypes,
book,
absolutely.
Okay.
It's about time we were no longer treated as demons and bombers and terrorists. That's the whole point of the book, if there is a point. I mean, but fundamentally, what I would reiterate is it's a story, it's a novel. It has serious issues as a backdrop, but I hope that the story and the lives of the characters would carry the whole book to its conclusion, and that would be interesting.
Okay, thank you for that. I want to take another call here. Assalamu alaikum, caller. Your name and your question or comment, please.
Hello, walaikum salam. My name is Shahid Latif, and I'm speaking from Birmingham.
Welcome.
Hi, I've just tuned into your program, and I'm just listening to your guest talking about, is it a book is just brought out?
That's right, yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering, what sort of a book is this? I mean, is this a comedy book, or is this a serious fiction book, or what is a book? I mean, I've not come across any sort of books that's to do with a very harsh tragedy that happened where millions of people died and wars came along, and when so many tragedies happened, I've not come across a book that's been portrayed in any way. So, I mean, is he going to be making money out of this, or is this just a hobby?
Okay.
And has he got anything in his book, dealing with the fact that there's a prime minister and a president still at large, not being brought to book, not being brought to account for the millions of Muslims who have suffered at the hands of their going to war on misleading evidence? Has he got anything to say about that in his book?
Yeah, thank you very much for your comments and your views as well. I'll take some reaction from you on that.
Well, as I said earlier, I've already stated that the President and the Prime Minister at the time, perpetrated these wars which were terrible. They were awful consequences for Muslims in Iraq and Afghanistan, across the world, and it's demonized Muslims as a result, calling it crusade. Psychologically, it's created a paranoia. As you were saying earlier, 24 states don't want so-called Sharia, and they're terrified of Islam and Muslims. And I've already stated that this is about that. Fundamentally, Muslims are people like everybody else. And as far as the President and Prime Minister being brought to justice, I mean, I'm not a policeman or a lawyer, I'm a writer, and my book does address these issues actually. It does talk about the crimes, inverted commas, committed through states. As much as terrorism is a crime, so it's possible for states to be, enact acts of terror and become criminals by their actions. And many people believe that the war in Iraq was a criminal action, and the consequences were awful for hundreds of thousands and millions of people. And we've, perhaps the caller missed that, but we have reiterated that quite clearly earlier on in the program, and I firmly believe that.
At the beginning, just to be fair to the caller responding to his question as well.
Yes.
The book actually is a fictional novel, and its theme is terrorism in the broader sense of the word. And we did at length speak about that earlier. So just to make that point, really.
Yes, yes.
So but I thought it was a good point that was raised by the caller.
Absolutely,
there.
yeah.
We have another caller, and I'd like to take this call. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Give your name, please, and your comment.
Yeah, my name is Yusuf, and I'm from Los Altos, Birmingham, and I would like to say, how can you stop this terrorism happening in like 9/11, what happened in America and Iraq and around the world, and how can we educate Muslims around the world?
Okay, thank you very much for that very direct question there, really. So he wants to know how this can be stopped. Where does it end?
Well,
how can we curtail this, if you like?
Again, I don't pretend to have all the answers or anything like that, and I'm not a politician and I'm not a lawyer or a policeman, but what I will say is from years and years of looking at this and researching this and working within Muslim and non-Muslim community in great depth as a doctor, as well as psychologically thinking about things from a writer's point of view, I can say absolutely categorically that this will not be ended by the state of Britain, or it will not be ended by the state of America. It will not be ended by the so-called war on terror. This is not going to be successful in the way that they envisage it. Even if you were able to conquer Afghanistan, Iraq, or any of these countries, how would you kill the ideology? How would you kill the fact that some people believe it is right to use your bodies or planes or whatever as weapons of war? Of course, we can never justify and legitimize that. Now, that will only ever be ended by Muslims. When Muslims take hold of this issue, you own it, it becomes your problem. And that's why we shouldn't be afraid of it. We shouldn't be afraid of this false veil of Islam. The terrorists, the violent extremists, let's call them, have cast a false veil over this issue. Oh, we're doing this in the name of Islam. You can't criticize us because we're Muslims. Well, I would say, no, actually, we can criticize you. We can say violent extremism is wrong, categorically wrong. Killing civilians in any shape or form by whomsoever does it is wrong. So when Muslims take hold of this problem and own it and kill it from within, this cancer of terrorism will only end in that way. It will never end by state-sponsored wars in third countries. That's not the way to kill this ideology.
I mean, some people do have those views, and I'm not disputing that. But what kind of role do you think the media played in hyping up, if you like, the enormity of the entire issue as well? Because I think there's a strong element of that, surely.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. The mainstream media loves the idea of a clash of civilizations. They love people to come on looking crazy, talking crazy, from both extremes, especially from the Muslim extreme. If I was a Muslim extremist and I said crazy things, I would be on Newsnight. I would be on...
We've seen plenty of that, haven't we?
Yes, seen plenty of that. I would be on some, mainstream Sky News and so on and so on. I'm not, minimizing the importance of Muslim channels. We have to work within our communities and the mainstream equally. But, they love these crazies. And that's all I would call them, inverted commas.
Media quite often is about those kind of stories.
Selling the newspaper in the morning. It's about selling the news stories, selling the newspaper. I've been standing outside mosques after Jummah myself, where I've seen people, news cameras, interviewing the craziest looking people, the maddest answers, and putting them out. But if you're a fairly normal looking guy coming outside of Jummah, they're not interested really in interviewing you.
But unfortunately, more serious point here, really, and the most serious point here is that people are influenced by media, what they hear, what they read in the news, what they read in the magazines, and so on. And the ordinary person who does not have, substantial knowledge of Islam or interaction with Muslims, they tend to take that impression, the ordinary non-Muslim, if you like, in the United States, in this country, or anywhere else for that matter, they would take something from that depiction, wouldn't they really? And I think that's one of the most dangerous aspects.
Absolutely.
That there is a cementation of that, isn't there?
Absolutely, and I would say that this is where the real war is. There is no front line, there's no battle line, there's no point people going and pretending that there's a real war between Islam and the West. Somewhere out there, there's a battle you have to go and join in fatigues and get a gun. No, there's no room for or need for that kind of violence, which just creates and perpetrates more violence and perpetuates the problem. The real war is the hearts and minds. If you really think Islam is so demeaned, if you really think Muslims are so demonized, okay, come and present your argument. let's take the media on. Let's take these issues on then. Let's talk about these things as we are doing today, you know, rightly, wrongly, but with a basic level of honesty. You know, the real war is the war for hearts and minds. That's absolutely, you know, and you would see that despite the trillions that have been spent on wars, direct wars by America, there have been an ever greater amount spent on the war for hearts and minds.
All of that was spent actually on building positive understanding and relationships,
Yeah.
and helping some of these countries that maybe
Absolutely.
are very poor and giving
Yeah.
rise to these kind of, if
Yeah.
all of those, I don't know, $1 trillion that have gone,
Yeah.
if that was put into the development,
Yeah.
what would have been able to we would have been able to achieve?
Absolutely. And, you know, I'm not saying that the terror or criminals of any kind anywhere should be brought to justice and brought to book, whether they be criminals of the literal kind who try and blow others up directly through, you know, markets, bombs or whatever, or whether they be criminals who masquerade as politicians anywhere in the world. But the real war is the one for hearts and minds. And the real war and the future is going to be determined by the media and the effects of the media, you know, are every aspect of our lives.
On a final, we've only got a few minutes to go. I do want to one comment on this positive note. The Arab Spring.
Yes.
It's always in the media.
Yes.
And you know, how do you see the Arab Spring really? You know, from your point of view, have you mentioned that in your book?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I think 9/11 had a direct consequence over the years, developing a snowball effect, which led to the Arab Spring. In fact, the Arab Spring, I wrote about it 3 years ago. I don't have any prophetic powers, but you could actually see the dis-ease and the discomfort in the Muslim minds and the hearts in these countries like Syria and Libya and Egypt and so on, and Yemen. And you can see that happening. And I wrote about these revolutions and overthrow of these governments. They're actually mentioned in my book, and I wrote those scenes, chapters 3 years ago. They're not written today. So actually, it's you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see how unhappy
the
people...
discontent has been there for a long time.
For generations, and at least 1 or 2 generations. And you know, you can suppress and oppress a people for so long, but sooner or later there comes a point where oppression, tyranny and despotism does not win out. And you know, thank goodness the people are now voicing, and it's so sad to see so many people losing their lives in this process. You know, but you know, this is the Arab Spring, and I hope it leads to a very beautiful summer, because really this is what the Muslim world needs: a bit of freedom, the ability to breathe, the chance to think again freely, the chance to vote in who they really want, you know, and have that freedom of speech in the media and so on. And we don't understand how difficult that is. We're living in a free thinking and a free press country as we do, and where we can have freedom of speech, and you know, those rights that if you ask, and I know these people personally from these countries, I've worked with them like Libya and Egypt and Syria, literally you are afraid of your own family. Or you have been.
That's right,
up till now. Literally your own brothers and your sisters and your cousins and your aunties, because you don't know when you're going to disappear or when and who might report you. And these police states, I mean, they're Orwellian in their nature. And we say, does writing, and we're talking about writing in books, and it's only a novel. It is only a novel. So was 1984, you know, and so many other things, Animal Farm and so on. And they're only novels, but these novels can change the world, and they can change how people think and feel. And people are ready to fight and die over these ideas, as we can see. So yeah, the Arab Spring is definitely covered and talked about, and actually predicted it in my writing.
Okay, with that, we come to the end of this program. It's been an invigorating discussion.
Thank you very much.
And words are
Thank you to the
indeed
group.
powerful. and of course, this is the first word in the Quran, of course, is Iqra, which means to read. And words are indeed powerful. With this, we finish this program. Jazakumullah khairan, Dr. Max Malik, for being in the studio today to discuss this very important theme.